You might have seen a video that looks like this pop up in your recommended recently. These are videos of full-blown music compositions that have seemingly come out of nowhere. If you haven't seen these videos, I recommend you stick around and learn about them, because most people who stumble upon them are pleasantly surprised.
First recommended video here is one of those videos I was talking about. I like this one already. Dudes like this are literally like the modern day Mozart and Beethoven. It's actually insane.
These compositions feel like video game soundtracks, classical pieces, anime openings, and jazz standards. So where are all of these new compositions coming from? Surely not just anyone could make beautiful music like this. Well, to answer these questions, we need to take a trip back in music theory history. And I mean real far back. Music composition has a wide history dating back to 1400 BC. Basically, as long as people have made music, they have written down and shared that music with others. When people hear the term music composition or music composer, they think of the harmonic style of 18th century European musicians. Shout out Adam Neely. In fact, when you look up music composers, these are the people that come up first. The most recent from this list is Brahms, who died in 1897, and I would bet that only maybe one or two of you has even heard of him. Clearly, there must have been something crucial about this period in music's history, and I think that is twofold. There was a massive rise in the solidification of music standards, as well as the accessibility of musical instruments. And as music history goes, it starts with the classical era, leads into the romantic era, and then culminates in the modern era. Although the modern era isn't very modern anymore. Following this modern era, music becomes a lot more convoluted. You get American classical music, or jazz, which had a huge course of action between the 1900s and 1960s, and following the 1960s, you get rock and other popular music that really solidifies the four-chord structure. And then you can fast forward to today, where out of the foundations of both jazz and rock, we have all kinds of electronically produced music. We can all agree that sheet music is long past its prime. And the simplification of music that digital audio workstations bring has become the new standard, synthesizing musical recording in musical notation, or MIDI. Now, do you remember why the classical era was one of the most important times in music? It was the solidification of music standards as well as accessibility to musical instruments. I would argue that we are in another very important time for music. What time in history has more access been granted to instruments than right now? Everyone has a phone with GarageBand, and if you have a computer, then once you have a digital audio workstation, there are so many doors being opened, you can't even count them all. One press of a note on a keyboard could be any instrument you want, and even just with stock plugins, you could play thousands of different instruments. So not only has access to instruments skyrocketed, but I would argue that a new music standard has come about. Piano roll has become the new sheet music. It doesn't make sense for musicians to try to put their work on a piece of paper and translate it into this archaic system when playing a note directly translates onto a piano roll. So access to instruments has become widespread, and at the same time, there's been a new universalization of music standards. These are the Goldilocks conditions that created the classical era of music, and these same changes are allowing for this class of YouTube composers to come about. At this point, you might be wondering, who are these new composers? Sorry, I had to get some fresh air. I had the same question, and that's why I decided to make a list of questions and send it out to every single one of these videos I saw in my recommendations. And it was a lot. I'll have all the channels that I reached out to linked down in the description, so make sure to check out that list. The first thing I wanted to know about these composers is, what was their musical background? There's actually a very wide range of musical backgrounds. I will say the most common theme I saw was about 6 years, and 6 years exactly. But that's not to say that everyone had that much experience, because another thing I commonly saw was 1 year of experience. Most of these people too had a decent bit of musical background in their childhood. A common theme was lessons when they were young, and they kind of didn't do music for a while, but they picked it back up installed the DAW, and now they're creating this. Another extremely common theme is that they learned most of their music theory knowledge from YouTube. These aren't people who went to music school. You know, a couple people mentioned that they did AP music theory class, but I wouldn't say that that's even the majority of responses I got. If I had to build an archetype of what most people's experience was, it would be, that's a big ass rat. People who had some lessons when they were a kid didn't really vibe with music, but when they got older, they installed a digital audio workstation, and after about a year of producing, they ended up on this genre. The next thing that I wanted to know is, what kind of equipment did these people have? This one was a little surprising to me, but I can't say I'm too shocked. The average response I saw was a MIDI keyboard. That's it. A digital audio workstation and a MIDI keyboard. The cost to entry in this genre is really, I don't know, $100 to $400, depending on what version of digital audio workstation you want to buy. And another thing I saw was some people just hand write into their piano roll. Every piece of their score is hand placed note by note. One question I threw in there for fun was, which do you prefer? Classical, jazz, or anime openings? Jazz won out, with classical trailing a little behind, and yeah, anime openings didn't get the response I thought they would. Now, this last question was the most pressing to me. This is what I truly wanted to know from all of these producers. Why did they all start? Where did they all come from all of a sudden? For this question, they almost all gave me the exact same answer. They started because of Azali. What the hell is an Azali?
About 3 months ago, a YouTube channel called Azali was created. The content posted to this channel were simple recordings of their FL Studio compositions with intriguing titles. This allowed the compositions to shoot through the YouTube algorithm. I remember the first time I saw them in my recommendations. I sent it over to all my music friends and we were awed by the simplicity of the concept and the quality of the music. Now let me be clear in saying that Azali was not the first person to post compositions on YouTube, and neither was he the first to post his FL projects. However, this merging of the two, I can at least say, inspired so many new creators to do videos just like him. Sorry about the nasally voice, I got sick while recording. So to get to know the person who inspired all these people, I asked him the same questions that I asked the producers. He said that his parents had him do piano lessons when he was young, but he didn't like them at the time, and there was always a piano in the house as he was growing up. Because of this, he said every now and then I'd try learning a song from a game or anime that I liked. That is how he became comfortable with the piano. He said that he knows almost nothing about music theory, taking an intro class in college, but only learning about scales and chords. And he mentions that you don't need to learn theory to make music, but if you want to bring it to the next level, then you should. His equipment is a Casio CDP S100, and all of his songs before the Forever Storm are composed using FL default instruments. Of the three options, he's actually in the anime opening gang, and he has only been producing / composing since September. But now I ask the question, what led to Azali? On one hand, I would point to all the things I mentioned earlier in this video. The access to instruments and new music standards undoubtedly aided him in starting his career. But what if there was another force? Whatever pushed Azali to start making music must be the first domino, the beginning of the chain, the prime mover. And if I could ask him the question, what led to you making these compositions, that would be it. The singularity, the thing at the start of the universe. So now, let us read his answer. I only got FL to try and make breakcore after watching one of your videos. That's right! It was me! I started it all! From day one, I've been plotting, scheming, setting this all in motion. Here's a picture of me composing the first bit of music ever. Here's me standing behind Bach, telling him what to write in his first symphony. And lastly, here's my video that inspired Azali to start producing. Okay, but in all seriousness, this subculture of composers on YouTube is just awesome. The fact that so many people could make such impactful art is just unheard of in all of history. I really do hope that everyone goes and checks out the channels in the description. I often get these videos on my recommended, and just from that 1 minute, it'll put a smile on my face. Also, if you're someone who uploads these compositions, please comment and I will add you to the list in the description until that list reaches the character limit for descriptions on YouTube. Now, before the end of this video, I do have one final announcement. I am working in collaboration with Azali to make a tutorial on how anyone could make these compositions. If that sounds interesting to you, please make sure to subscribe because that video is coming up next. I would love to see this community keep on growing.